Good morning and welcome to Global Dialogues. I'm your host, Baldomero Lago, and today we welcome the Honorable Mr. Franz Kolb, Honorary Consul of the Republic of Austria to Utah, and also the Director of International Trade and Diplomacy at the Governor's Office of Economic Development. During this session, feel free to ask questions in the Facebook comments window. If time permits, I will address a select few. As a way of introduction, Mr. Kolb was recognized by the State Department as the Honorary Consul of Austria on June 14, 2002, right after the Olympics. He is the Regional Director for International Trade and Diplomacy, responsible for Europe, India, Middle East, and Africa in the State of Utah Governor's Office of Economic Development. His previous experience include President of the Kolb Group, an international business consulting company specializing in international business development, Deputy Director for the State of Utah's International Business Development Office, Director of International Services of Ernst & Young, and President of an international business consulting firm, which is specialized in the high-tech industry. Mr. Kolb was educated in Austria and the United States. He received an associate's degree, bachelor's and master's degree from Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. Mr. Kolb has been appointed by the United States Secretary of Commerce to the Utah District Expert Council. I know that Mr. Kolb has been in his business on international trade and diplomacy for many years, and if I recall, has worked directly with 6 governors in the state of Utah. Mr. Kolb, Franz, good day. How are you today, my friend?
Good morning, Dr. Lago. It's a pleasure to be here and to speak to the students of Utah Valley University and around the world.
That is terrific. Thank you. I appreciate the time you have taken to be with us this morning. Let's talk, before we get into international trade and relations and also your role in the governor's office. Let's talk first about your role as the Honorary Consul of Austria. What does your Austrian community looks like? Tell us something unique about your community, and perhaps if someone wants to relive their Austrian experience, where could they go here in the state of Utah?
Well, Austria and Utah has had a long-standing relations. There were many immigrants that came from Austria turn of the century and actually way before in the 50s and 60s after the war for economic, cultural reasons. The Austrian community, and of course during the Olympics, we have had some great contacts. We've got Austrian companies here in Utah, and the diaspora here has been very active in various positions, and it is a small diaspora, but you know, we get together on occasion and we are having fun and think about our homeland in Austria. What's fascinating is one of the reasons that I came over here is obviously the beauty, the snow and the weather, and so we that is one of the reasons. Some of the companies that are here, for example, Doppelmayr and Wintersteiger, work in the ski industry and actually winter industry. Doppelmayr is a ski lift manufacturer. So we have from bakers to university professors, people that are here and enjoy living here, and the nice weather, the good people, and the good food. And Austria is not that far away. Well, actually pre-COVID, it was not that far away, and you know, and I've had many delegations that came from overseas, and especially from Austria, that absolutely loved it in Utah.
You know, Franz, individuals around the neighborhood, when they think of Austria, they think of the sound of the music, but I know there's more music than sound coming out from Austria. So tell us some of the most beautiful places, or if I were thinking about maybe next summer, I want to do a little trip to Austria. I know it's just the most remarkable place on earth. And So how would you entice someone that, yes, you need to go to Austria, B, get to know the Austrians, and C, learn a little bit about the history and the culture of Austria?
Well, I don't know if we would give you a visa, Dr. Lago, uh, to answer your question, Austria consists of 9 provinces. from the very flat part of Austria on the east. One province is called the Land of Castles, or Burgenland, to the very west of Austria, which is a province called Vorarlberg, that is bordering Switzerland and Germany. The uniqueness of Austria, we have been referred to as the crossroads of Europe. We have had many peoples over the centuries come through. They leave their culture, they leave their culinary, their foods, and so on and so forth. What is unique about Austria is we have still distinct cultures. We speak different dialects. I grew up in a province I was born in a province called Upper Austria. So if I would go to Vienna, they would know where I am from. They would, based on my dialect, and they also would know, for example, they would know actually what social class I'm in, on one sense. The Austrian people are not Germans. They might be German speaking, and they are, but they're different. They're very distinct in tradition. So, for example, many people ask me, what's the difference? And one of the differences, culture is reflected in music. And I always say we waltz in Austria. The waltz comes from Austria, and the Germans. Well, I better not say, but the Germans have a little bit of a different kind of music. How about Mozart? Maybe that's a little better. Mozart versus Beethoven. So we are just easygoing. For example, in Vienna, we have balls in Vienna, and so festivals during the spring that we actually are doing here in Salt Lake City too. We have every February we have the Vienna Ball here, where over 300-400 people get together, an evening of dancing and fun and so on. So we enjoy. We work to live in Austria. We don't necessarily live to work like many times here in the United States, and we have had we are, and a lot of people don't know this. For example, we are a neutral country, and so we are a member of the European Union, but we are neutral, and we are not a member of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and have been for many years a proponent of the United Nations. And we became an independent country in 1955, when the last soldier left Austria, the last foreign soldier left Austria, and we imposed we elected to have a self-imposed neutrality, which a lot of people don't know. Now, where should you go in Austria, to answer your question? If you want to have an experience, I think Vienna is the capital city with about, 1.8 million people. Is very interesting from a cultural perspective. You get the feeling that you really are. I mean, the Habsburgs ruled Europe for a long time, and you get this feeling that you're in a quote-unquote emperor's town. To some smaller cities, you mentioned Salzburg, or the Sound of Music, which is one of the favorite for American friends that would come over and would take a Sound of Music tour, or they would say, oh my gosh, this is where Maria danced in the glass house, and this is where this was. And so that, I think, is very interesting. But also Innsbruck, we have an Olympic town. There is a connection between Salt Lake City and Innsbruck. Innsbruck had the Olympics twice in 1964 and I believe 72 or 74. And so, and then there are other beautiful cities. One of the beautiful provinces is, for example, what's called Steiermark, or then the capital of Graz, which is referred to as the green heart of Austria. And we actually are having, and this is actually where my ancestors are from, those beautiful green hills, and from a region called Kainach, K-A-I-N-A-C-H. And we have on occasion also now what's called a Kainach Forum, where we get international people together and connect. And there's also a website if somebody wants to check us out, called kainachforum.org. And but here's what's unique. Wherever you go in those small communities and towns, everyone has a specialty when it comes to food. So if you go to a very small village in the province of Upper Austria or Lower Austria, you go to a restaurant and you just ask them for the specialty of the day, and you will get the real the food that is just made for that one day, and you can do that all over the country. And so that's, so it's a great place. It's a beautiful place. We have, and my recommendation, if somebody wants to come to Austria, that they choose a topic, for example, music, or for example, castles, or another example would be history, Mozart, for example, and then follow from where he was born till where he died. Some of the students might have seen the movie Amadeus, which I think is very nice. But so we have tons of festivals, music festivals during the Easter time, and next week is Palm Sunday in Austria, and then there is actually during that time there is it's now of course changes because of COVID, but there are a lot of festivals, generally speaking, around Easter. So there are some great and people they might not be as smiley. In America, usually people smile all the time when they see each other. It might be a little bit more formal, but once you get to know them, and if you have a good attitude, I think you will have a lot of fun in the Republic of Austria.
You know, I'm already sold. Being in Austria several times, and I echo your voice, and I think that is a beautiful country, and I highly recommend everyone to go and learn from the beautiful history and the culture of that amazing country. Franz, I know that we have struggled this past year due to COVID. How are the Austrians doing? How's Austria doing when it comes to the effect of economic status, the political, the support from the EU, just life in general in Austria? How are things coming along?
Now, Austria, like many countries, has really struggled when it comes to COVID. In fact, in some instances, Americans could not travel to Austria, and it's because they've been on lockdown for quite some time. We have had 517,000 cases of COVID. Now, keep in mind, Austria is about 8.4 million people, and out of those, 475,000 have recovered, and about 9,100 people have passed away. So it really has it's been difficult. Now, we've had also some people that were against some of the restrictions that the government imposed. But the fact of the matter is that they are strict. Government is strict in enforcement. Also, we have most recently, since the Easter season is coming up, they have, for example, delayed the opening now. This was as of last Friday, the opening of cafes and restaurants and bars and so on and so forth until after Easter, so well into April. And so for example, the prime minister, the Chancellor Kurz, he he met with all the governors of the 9 provinces, and they agreed that at this time there is they need to have stricter rules and implement them. The biggest challenge right now is, like in many other European countries, is the whole notion of the different variations of COVID that are coming. And then the other thing is that the vaccination is, while it is going on, it is not fast enough for the population, and there's a lot of unhappiness right now.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, is vaccination happening right now in Austria?
They are, but I mean, but it is really going very slow. I mean, to give you an idea, also in Germany, which has 85 million people, they have so far only vaccinated 3 million people. So there are some real challenges ahead, and this will impact travel. I know in Utah we are starting to opening up here on April 10th, and our rates right now are going low, coming down quite dramatically, which I think is good. And thanks to our leadership, Governor, Department of Health, and the coordination, there's been some great coordination and the vaccination. I mean, I always say I'm grateful I'm living in Utah and not in some of the Eastern New York large cities where they are a little bit behind about some of these vaccinations. And all over Europe, to a certain degree, you would find quite a dissatisfaction as far as the fast implementation of the vaccination efforts, and also in Austria.
Well, we hope that this episode in our lives will the next page will come, and it will be a little more prosperous and optimistic. I know that Austria is a very modern, sophisticated nation in the European Union, and I foresee that they're probably working hard to implement and to reach the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda established by the United Nations member states, including Austria, obviously. Since this is something that we promote at our university and through our office, every time I have a guest coming from representing a foreign nation, I ask them the question, how is your country acting when it comes to sustainability or the SDGs establishment or implementation?
You know, what is amazing, at least from an Austrian perspective, Austria has been a proponent of the United Nations since its inception. Austria has been the United Nations being a forum of discussion for global issues and for issues that impact not just one country, but the whole world. And I was very surprised when I came to the United States about some of the apprehension against the United Nations, which I could never understand. And every student, I believe, that would study the purpose of the organization and the goals of the organization, I think would sooner or later come to the conclusion that it is good when companies, when peoples from different and governments from different countries come together, that they would find a forum or a level of at least communication. I mean, there's no problem to disagree with various issues. That's what every country can do or government can do, but at least there is a forum. And so I just wanted to say from the outset that the government of Austria is in very strong support and very active in the United Nations. in various committees and so on and so forth. And the Sustainable Development Goals have been extremely important, and we have implemented quite many of them, and I'm in the process of implementing all of them. So, for example, we've been focusing. We believe in the Sustainable Development Principles in ecological, social, and economic dimension. So it's not just a government kind of a thing, but we are making an effort and have implemented from in all these sectors. So we are not just only talking about it, but it is a constitutional state goal. So those principles are in our constitution. We take it so serious. Now, keep in mind, we are a small country, about the size of Maine, with about 8.5 million people, but we can contribute to these goals that will affect humanity, not just in this century, but for centuries to come. So we are. So when it comes to government, we have the SDGs we have. They're all in all government programs, written into all government programs since 2016, since 2016, and we are having action plans and how we are continually doing this. We have documents from climate to energy strategy, from 3-year programs on development policy, health targets, youth strategy, foreign trade strategies, and all those kind of things are in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals. We when it comes to, for example, digitalization, we're implementing the 2030 agenda and then we are what's important also, women and young people, leaving no one behind is important. So the targeted measure to improve living conditions, among others, persons with disability, older persons, young people and children. So we are very cognizant of those, and we are incenting companies and organizations to do this. When it comes to involvement of young people into the, so this is also what we're doing. We are focusing on young people and to implement the 2030 agenda, 16-year-olds and youth empowerment. We are focusing on that as well. And now just 2 or 3 more things. Gender equality with NGOs and civil society. We have a focus, and we're not just focusing, doesn't just mean we talk about it, but we implement it, and we have a strategy, and we have outcomes measures. When it comes to climate, Austria, we are focusing on achieving climate neutrality by 2040. So we have eco-social tax reforms. We have a mobility master plan for 2030, and et cetera, et cetera. But and then we have also, when it comes to carbon neutrality, we are also we have targets that we are achieving. And now we do have also, now having said that, we do have some challenges when it comes to some of these areas. And so, for example, one is, in fact, we just did at the Kainach Forum a discussion with women from all over the world. There was a lady from Austria, and we still have a challenge when it comes to the pay gap between men and women. So we are dealing with that, but not fast enough on one side. And energy consumption, we are focusing on. It still will take some time, but Austria is very serious when it comes to, for example, emissions. It is, and so when it comes to emissions, I had my cars inspected in Austria and here, and I kind of always have a smile when I go here, because in fact, when I have tourists here from Austria, that take pictures of some of the cars that are allowed to drive over here. Forgive me, some of them rust heaps that would never in a million years pass at home. And just to give you an idea how sensitive they are, this might be interesting for a student. My driver's license in Austria cost me $5,000. And I had to, actually, I was the first one in my family that passed the first time at the first attempt. And I got quite a few university degrees, but none of my degree was as difficult than was the driver's license in Austria. And why? Because the alternatives to driving, and that's public transportation is reliable. You can go. Trains are on time, and or buses. And we have, I think, quite a ways to go to do that here. I'm not saying they should charge $5,000 for a driver's license, but well, sometimes when you see some of the driving, maybe they should increase the price of a little bit here in Utah.
Well, I remembered getting my driver's license in Europe, and I know the pain and the cost. You're totally correct. I'm grateful to hear what Austria is doing to promote the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. It's remarkable to hear your comments. Franz, you are such an incredible representative for your republic, and we're very grateful for everything that you do. But besides working or representing the state, representing your country here in the state pro bono, which people sometimes don't understand that honorary consuls do their job for free. Your current job is being a job that you have had for 20 plus years, I think 27 years, something like that. And you have worked with, correct me if I'm correct, maybe 7 governors that you have been working with. Tell us maybe a couple highlight experiences of working with different governors, and what is it like to be in that circle and having to travel with the governor, or taking them on a trade mission, or just bring dignitaries into the community. What an incredible career you have had. What are some of the highlights you would like to share with us?
Well, first, I have worked in Utah. My background is, and you've mentioned a few facts. I've been in international business for a long time. Actually, I went through an apprenticeship in Austria. And I also then came over here, worked for Ernst & Young, and got some degrees here in Utah. And then when I worked for Ernst & Young, the traveling got too much. And I said, okay, I need to have a job where my dogs recognize me when I come home. And so at the time, Governor Bangerter came and he said, can you help me? Can you help us with internationalizing Utah's economy? And that's what I've been doing. And I've worked in international business development, promoting exports, in international investment into Utah. And then there's also the diplomacy aspect to this whole thing. And I've also been teaching quite a bit at various universities here as well as in Europe. And I always believed that we should give back, because I remember how it was when I was a student and just graduating over here, and the importance of networking and so on and so forth. During my work, one of my responsibility is, and I did hundreds of seminars. I did over 50 trade missions all over the world with Utah companies, and also the governor. Now, in the last couple of years, I've been the director of diplomacy, and I handle, in my career, we hosted about 1,400 ambassadors and consuls general and consuls, and working with various institutions. That's why I'm so grateful to Dr. Baldomero Lago, who is such a wonderful resource and professional, and he has done so much for the Utah Valley University, also with several presidents, and has swung the flag of Utah Valley all over the world. By the way, I will charge you for this afterwards, but I'm very sincere when I say this, and a lot of people don't know this. In my work, one of the things is when it comes to diplomacy is to recognize each other for certain accomplishments and so on and so forth. And so a couple of years ago, I was contacted by the Consul General of Spain, informing me that Dr. Baldomero Lago has been received a knighthood from King Carlos, and if we could find an appropriate place in Utah where we would bestow this. And so I will never forget that we were in the gold room. This is now a couple of years ago, in the gold room of the state of Utah Capitol, where Dr. Baldomero received the highest honor that has ever been bestowed by the Kingdom of Spain to a Utahn. And I always say, look at this, from Father Escalante that came here in 1776, who was also Spanish, to Dr. Baldomero Lago. And now, I'm grateful for his example and leadership, and so that's what we also do in diplomacy. I just want to point this out from a diplomatic standpoint and side. When we go overseas, my job is protocol with the governor. I have been in, as I mentioned, many trade missions, and so from A to Z, sometimes we go what is called on a pre-trip, where we have everything planned out, and then we go over and meet from a logistics and security standpoint, the various locations, and we go to various locations and interface with government agencies and the US consuls or embassies and consulates or embassies. And I've had many experiences along those lines, and maybe I can share one or two that might be interesting. I think since you folks are teaching diplomacy at Utah Valley University, I need to give the students 2 or 3 suggestions and tell them that it is the toughest work that you will ever do, because a lot of people think, oh my gosh, these guys are traveling and so on and so forth. And I've in my career, I've crossed the Atlantic over 140, 150 times. And but I'm telling you, when I still remember when my children were smaller, my wife taking me to the airport, and the children were crying, Dad, where are you going again? My wife was crying, and I had to go on another trip to another part of the world. And it was a real burden for the family, and but that has been my job. So when you go overseas, then the moment we leave the shores of the United States, we are subject to the laws of other countries. And the United States Constitution does not apply, whether you're a citizen of the United States or not. I remember once flying to Israel to prepare for an Israel trade mission. And before we landed, as we got off the airplane, they were informing us that so far on that day, 600 missiles have been fired from the Gaza into Tel Aviv and into Jerusalem. And so we were landing there, and so we basically by the hour got updates as to this war that was going on. We met with the foreign ministry and with the government of Israel in Jerusalem, and I still remember talking to them, and I've been there before, and these folks are good friends. And I remember going to our transportation provider and discussing transportation and security, when we got a phone call from the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv saying, "Where are you?" I said, "Well, we are in Jerusalem and we are negotiating." They said, "Sir, we want you to leave now. Jerusalem is under attack. We want you to leave now." So I said, "Okay." We said, "Yeah, we'll go." And so about 5 minutes later, they called again, "Where are you now?" "Well, we are just walking out the door." "Leave now." And so they ordered us to leave. And the third one times they called, we were in a car and we were driving from Jerusalem down to Tel Aviv. And so they were telling us, they're giving us security briefings saying, "Listen, if you hear a siren, you have 90 seconds to find a shelter," and all these things. So we arriving in Tel Aviv, getting off the freeway on our way to the hotel, and suddenly we hear a siren. And this was like in a movie. All cars stop, doors fly open, people take their children, crying children are running in a direction. And so there we were, there were three of us, one of my colleagues sleeping in the back. And our driver was a security person also from Utah. And I said, "What are we gonna do?" I pointed to a little stone here and says, "You guys wanna hide there?" And as I was saying this, I was looking far away and I could see something coming towards us. And I said to my colleagues, "Well, look at this. This is the missile." And they were saying, "No, it's not a missile." So the guy takes out his mobile phone and films it. And it comes closer and closer and gets bigger. And suddenly we see the Iron Dome go up about 400 yards away from us. And above us, the missile exploded. It was a missile. And that we could hear about a couple seconds later or 20 seconds later, we could hear the boom. And so I was supposed to have a trade mission come over 10 days later. And I called the governor in a meeting and I said, "Sir, if it would be up to me, if you know, I'm here and so on and so forth. But if you ask me, would I have my family or my wife coming over in these situations?" I would say, "Absolutely not." And so we canceled that trade mission and postponed it 3 months later when this conflict was over, and it worked out quite well. Now, I've had. I could tell many stories about one of the critical issues in diplomacy is what we call mementos, which is very important. Mementos are extremely important. One of the toughest things of my job is to find the right mementos. When I go overseas, whether I meet with the arrange meetings with the King of Jordan or the President of Israel or the President of Mexico and so on, or President of Taiwan, that we have mementos at that very level. And maybe I should just share one more example, if you have a minute, about a memento. Maybe that could be interesting for the students. But some years ago, this was on another trade mission. For some reason, well, this one went to Israel. And the issue now is, okay, what should we give them? Okay, give them a book. Yeah, everybody gives a book. So we had this whole notion of what do we do that differentiates us, that and so on and so forth. And so I'm gonna share this with you. So we did some research here, and we found that about Israel-Utah connections. And we found that Brigham Young University was doing and has been doing at that time 20, 30 years earlier research and work on what is called the Dead Sea Scrolls, where they found in these caves in Israel, these old scrolls, sometimes only flakes that they would be putting together. And BYU has apparently been top leaders in putting them together via computer and so on and so forth. And lo and behold, what has happened is they were putting these together over the years, they found and they were copies of the Old Testament, right? And they found on one of those scrolls a chapter of Psalms that included a lost verse. There was one verse in Psalms, and the reason they knew it was missing or is currently missing in the Bible is because that verse is in Hebrew, is written anachronistically, which means the first verse is A, then the second starts with a B, the third with a C, and the letter N, or they call it nun or non, is missing. And so BYU found that missing verse. So what did we do? We asked that professor down there. He says, "Yeah, I'll be happy to put this in Hebrew on a piece of leather." And so they put it on a piece of leather. We had it framed, especially framed for that. And so I took 2 of those copies with me, and I'm going to explain to you now what the impact of some of these mementos can be over there. So we had scheduled a meeting with the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and it was supposed to be about a 10-minute, 15-minute meeting. So we got there, and there were maybe 7, maybe 8 people of the delegation of about 50. And usually what happens is that the foreign government says, this consists of, okay, but so we obviously everybody wanted to come. And so I said, no, they said about 8 people or 8 people can come. So we had the governor there and the first lady. And so so we were waiting for about 40 minutes. And they sent a minister in who gave us a briefing on some of the security issues of Israel. And then the Prime Minister comes in very quickly, and he's late a little bit, and so on and so forth. And the governor, he did something interesting. Usually, by protocol, you hand the memento at the end after some dialogue. There's memento, there's a photo opportunity. But he took that picture. That frame with that not just the missing verse, but that chapter of Psalm, and including the verse. And so the governor said, in behalf of the people of Utah, we would like to return to you the missing verse of Psalm such and such in the Bible. And so the Prime Minister sees this, and he looks at it, and he looks at the verse, and at this picture, and he looks at the governor, and he looks at the verse, and he looks at the governor, and he says, "Mr. Governor, we have been waiting for this for 3,000 years." And so then the Prime Minister takes the picture. He asks everyone to sit down, and they explained to him. And he said, "What you don't know, Mr. Governor, is that my son, who at the time was 14 years old, is a biblical scholar or expert memorizing verses of the Bible and so on and so forth." So we had, out of the 10, 15-minute meeting, became a 45-minute meeting. And the staff was really got nervous, but we talked about Utah and the connections. I mean, not only do we have a Zion's Bank and a Moab, and a Jordan River, and so on and so forth. And he was just absolutely holding the picture during the whole time. And then he said, after 40 minutes, "I would like you all to come with me." So this was in a conference room. And we went right next door to his personal office, he says, "And here is my name in Hebrew. Netanyahu means this." And he says, "And this is where I'm going to hang the memento that you have given to us. And we are very grateful, and so on and so forth. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because you need to, in diplomacy, always find out the hot button of the people you're dealing with. And you need to internalize those. And you need to make sure that you are, even with your friends and so on and so forth. That's extremely important. And then you differentiate yourself from others. I mean, we know there are some folks that said that, remember the names, and I think that's very important, but find the hot buttons. And I could tell you many, many, many examples. And I still to this day do this when I talk to consuls general, when I talk to ambassadors when they come. The most important thing is to keep the relationship, and keeping the relationship going is to find out what the hot buttons are of. And on occasion we have seminars on the 9 steps of successful international networking. And maybe one day we can, you can log on and we can do some of the things. Networking is really a key. So that's a little bit from my diplomacy work. What's really interesting is that a lot of people over here, they don't understand what the heck is diplomacy. What is this? All we want to do is business. It's like when the Olympics were here, I was always saying, business is okay, but this is a sporting event for the world. It's a sporting event. And and so business, if you approach it the right way, it can happen. But it is a sporting event. And we have been so many times business focused that we forget some of these things. And I had to always make sure that people know that. And when we meet, and what we do, for example, we prepare briefing papers on a trade mission. This might also be interesting for your students. We have about a 250-page briefing book that we put together when we go. From the governor, the second he and the first lady leave the mansion, and every step, every meeting they will meet, everything is in there, and until they get back safely into back home. And in protocol, that's what we do. We brief the governor, we brief our governor or principals, and we make sure that. And then there's follow-up and so on and so forth. So this is serious business. And I'm absolutely surprised that some of the larger organizations in Utah don't have diplomacy people. I just don't believe that. They make all the effort to try to do relationships, but they don't have anybody that coordinates them. And there should be, even with businesses, for example, you down in Utah Valley, you have Nu Skin, you have some of the larger companies down there. They should always have somebody that is trained when it comes to diplomacy and diplomatic aspects. That's why I'm grateful for your school. And Dr. Lago, when we put together on an annual basis a diplomatic conference, every student should be begging to be part of that. And because it'll, we have some of the key ambassadors and consuls general come, and my gosh, a lot of students, here's what I don't understand. They spend $30,000-$40,000 in Utah to get an education, and then at the end of the education they say, okay, what are we going to do now? Instead of doing the education, network. Focus on networking, focus on following up with the initial, I teach a class sometimes up at the University of Utah called Diplomacy, Mentoring and Networking. And I'm always surprised. I force everyone to have their own business cards. And this says, we don't need business cards anymore. No, it's an extension of yourself. It's, we are in an image management time. And, you got to develop your person, and so everybody, and this is actually a graduate class, they have to come up with a business card and who they are and tell me about yourself and all those kind of things. Those are some skills that I think help students not only to be successful in diplomacy, but also networking and as they change careers throughout their lifetimes and so on and so forth.
Thank you, Franz. Boy, I hope that you're recording some of those memories, and I hope that one day we'll be able to read a lovely publication from Mr. Kolb on some of your experiences worldwide. We thank you for your time. I vividly remember the day that you came one time to a group of us and lecture us on how to use a business card. I mean, almost an hour lecture on what to do with a business card. It was probably one of the most memorable experiences that I've ever had in my life. And I implement some of your principles as to what to do with a car and how that is presented in different countries and how it's accepted and what do you do after you get the car. And to this day, I still implement that, right? Anyhow, we are way over our scheduled time, but I could be here for many more hours just chatting with you. You know that I do appreciate you dearly, and you have been a good friend for almost 2 decades. So I can honestly say that you're a close dear friend, and I do appreciate you coming and joining us this morning, almost afternoon now. To everyone that has been joining us and will follow this proceedings, we'll thank you for your time and for willingness to learn and to experience. And folks, don't worry, because I typically bring Honorable Franz Kolb to campus, and so we'll have more experiences every single diplomatic conference he comes and join us, and other events as well. So we will be hearing from him in the future as well. Just as a reminder, a week from today, we'll be having our last global dialogues with President Scott Sprenger. President Sprenger is the president of the American University in Rome. So he will be communicating with us from Italy. And then tomorrow, please don't forget, tomorrow we'll have the Taking Action Sustainable Development 16, which includes promote peaceful and inclusive society for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. We're excited to have a great panelist tomorrow at the same time, 11 o'clock, to discuss SDG 16. And again, to see the full schedule for global dialogues or previous videos programs, please access our website at uvu.edu/global. As we sign off today, we thank Mr. Kolb, Franz, for being with us. Thank you very much. And don't forget and remember always to choose to be a global citizen. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Appreciate you. Thank you.